Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Trailblazing Homeschool. Today we are going to be talking about something that we actually just worked through ourselves.
Just worked through, before we started recording this.
Okay, well we started a couple weeks ago.
That's true. We finished.
Yes, so we're going to be talking about a family mission statement. And before you hit pause and say, what does that have to do with homeschool? Well, it has a lot to do with homeschool because when we are creating a family mission statement, it is really setting the foundations for our family culture, and a lot of things. And so we found that doing that, having a clear mission and vision of our family really is helping us then guide our homeschool and how we homeschool and what we choose and just a lot of decisions. You have to lay a foundation and have these guides to help you decide things.
Yeah, I think that we all have kind of a family culture that's normal. And I would say that we've probably always had a non-listed kind of family mission statement, in the sense we know what we value, but we haven't taken the time to sit down and write it all out.
Well, we've done exercises over the last, I would say, 5 years, here and there, where we're listing out values and goals. Like we did a workshop with a friend, and part of that workshop was, listing out your family values. And so those are the kinds where we have a lot of discussion, but we never formalized it into any sort of, family mission statement. And when we were thinking about, what are the things that are going to help us and help you all with having successful homeschooling, we realized, writing this stuff down and creating a family mission statement will be a huge help. Like determining your family's values is going to be huge, again, because it's going to help all of us when we're in a tough situation, when we're trying to make decisions about where we're going and what we're doing or what we're choosing. Knowing what our values are, knowing what this mission is going to guide that and just make it so much easier for you to make a lot of decisions that would otherwise seem pretty overwhelming.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, it's excavation. You're digging up because you have some of these things already ingrained in your family. And you know that they're there, but it's hard to determine what they are. And it's hard, if you were asked a specific question, you would have a hard time answering that. And so what the process does is ask you those questions. So you begin to think about it. So you begin to maybe not list, but codify it, right? Code it, write it down, or have it in short, succinct statements so that then you can understand it better and you can go back to it easier. It's almost like prep work. When you go to the store and you really want a salad, but you don't want to go through the work of getting all the pieces. You don't want to get the lettuce and the dressing and the bacon bits and all the other pieces together. So you buy the pre-made salad. What you're doing is you're pre-making the salad for yourself. You're getting it all together so that it's in one place at one time, so it's easier to access for you and for your kids, because you may understand it kind of without having it in words, but your kids may need those words kind of external to themselves and external to this experiential thing, so they can reference back to them.
Yeah, and I think it really is an important part of training your children, and a huge thing just for parenting in general that we have learned over the years is it is important to set expectations, clear expectations, and it's important to give our kids boundaries, healthy boundaries. And so by creating a family mission statement, we're doing both of those things. We're setting expectations of this is who our family is. This is how we operate. These are the things that are really important to us. Not to say that we don't do anything outside of this, but that these are the things that are the most important. And that sets boundaries too of this is what we do. So we also know this is what we don't do. You know, we tell the truth, we don't lie, so that stuff is going to be really helpful for your kids because there is a boundary being set there and they know like, oh, okay, I'm safe within these boundaries.
Yeah.
Because for children, boundaries helps them feel safe. If you have no boundaries on your kids, they're going to feel out of control. That's a whole nother episode someday. But yeah, it's really, really important for kids.
Well, and it also gives them some buy-in because that gives them something to hold you against as well. So that when, for whatever reason, you violate a rule or a standard or seem like you're doing that, they can say, but our family values or our mission statement says this. And that gives you the opportunity to, one, recognize what you're doing, but also then to apologize and demonstrate, model for them what it looks like to apologize, to be sorry, and that you also kind of live in this context of you're not perfect. And none of us are perfect, and we're able to kind of learn together in that while we lead. I know that even yesterday I had that happen where I pulled something up on YouTube, mostly to listen to music, and my son, we have a rule that says at 3:30 is when you can start doing stuff that is not related to work or school, and depending on whether you're an adult or a kid. And he saw it and he's like, that doesn't look like a learning show. And so that gave me an opportunity to say, you're right, it's not, but I'm not watching it, I'm listening to it. It just so happens that it was easier to pull it up on there than it was to find it on the Echo Dot, But he feels free to hold me to the standard that we've set for everyone. And I want him to. And it gave me the opportunity to explain and have that conversation.
Yeah, and really the mission statement, like the values and mission statement is the foundation. And then on top of that, you can build on top of that things like house rules and other expectations that are more specific to situations, like our schedules, our routines, our rules for our kids, like, TV, like screen time, all of that, because they know that we value learning more than we value entertainment. We don't watch screens all day, every day, or, but we play outside and we do school and all that. So
yes,
that's where it's really important. When we were doing this process, there's a verse that used to come up a lot more when I was in kind of the Christian entrepreneur circle, and it's Proverbs 29:18. And it basically says, without vision, the people perish. That's the King James version, kind of shortened. If you look it up in other translation, it adds more like prophetic vision or, But the idea is that if we have nothing guiding us, really, if we have nothing guiding us, then we're lost. And we are not going to move forward. We're not going to be able to thrive without something guiding us. And, obviously for us, our first and foremost guide is Scripture, the Bible. But then we can use that. So that's kind of like the core foundation. And then we can use that to then guide and direct our family mission statement, which we will kind of be going through ours as we walk you through this process. And just to let you guys know, we are excited that we've created an actual workbook that is going to take you through this process of creating a family mission statement. And then on top of the family mission statement, it also has a section for creating your homeschool vision. And we're going to be diving into that deeper in an upcoming episode. But you can get the workbook now, which is awesome. So if you go to our website, trailblazinghomeschool.com, there's also going to be a link in the show notes and a link in our Instagram bio where you can go and download this workbook, and it'll get you guys going. So that's what we're going to start talking through, is basically our process, what we did, and then what we've created for you guys.
Yep, sounds good. I do think that it's worth noting that we thrive with boundaries. We all know that they're there. No one's really upset that they can't fly like a bird. The boundaries are helpful to us. for kids, for adults, for everyone. And I think our society has done away with some of that. And they said, well, you can be anything. Well, that's not true. If you're 5'2" and you can't dribble a basketball, you're probably not going to the NBA. That's a limitation. That doesn't mean you don't have a place. That doesn't mean you can't enjoy basketball. It just changes what's available. And those limitations are actually very valuable. They make us who we are, as much as our abilities make us who we are. And none of that's attached to value.
Exactly. Your abilities do not dictate your value. So, what is step 1 in this process?
I think that the first step, what was most helpful for us, is to get some questions. We Googled them, to be honest. Oh, that's right. I almost forgot the most important step. We need to pray about these things. And it is something that is often overlooked, as I just did. And it should be something that is just normal. Like I want that to be a normal thing in my experience, my walk, is to pray over kind of everything that we do, especially when it comes to deciding on large things. Like, what are we going to put in our mission statement? What is valuable? And lean into that for guidance, for clarity, and pray over it for those same things. That the Holy Spirit would come in and help to guide the decisions being made, because it is going to affect not only me and Melissa, but also our kids and presumably grandkids, great-grandkids for who knows how long. Because if we walk well and we have a strong family mission statement and work in that, process through that, live that out in our lives, that should have impacts for generations to come.
Not to put too much weight on this, but at the same time, as you're building this family mission statement, this is going to be a legacy that you give to your children, and then they can take and create their own family mission statement with their families and just perpetuate that legacy. So prayer is a really important part of that, because we're just asking God to give us a clear vision, to give us his vision for our family, right? Because yes, there are certain things that everyone is called to, but then there's certain things that only your family is going to be called to.
Yeah.
And also, I know for me that I have a bad habit of perfectionism. And so when I start to look at these questions that we're going through, I want to give the right answer. I want to what does that sound good? And that's not the point. And so if you're also guilty of this, no, you're not alone. But it's not about the right answer or what you think so-and-so would say, or what, your pastor would want you to answer, or your best friend or whatever, but just answer truthfully. And this can be a bit eye-opening too, to realize oh, I say I want this as my value, but my actions are not reflecting that right now. So how can I change and alter my trajectory and change the way that I'm living and the decisions that I'm making to better reflect this value moving forward?
I think there's a lot of grace in it, but there's also this point where you need to be aware of what's going on internally to do that, and what's going on in your family, and to pursue these questions in honesty, because you are not like everyone else. And so what you value is going to be different than everyone else's. And that's not to say that you're not going to share massive groupings of values with other people, but if you really love being outdoors, that's going to look different than someone who really loves being indoors. And so your mission statement for your family might be we get outside daily, as where someone else is we bake regularly. And neither one of them are better or worse, they're just different. And so there's going to be a lot of things that are going to be kind of large overarching things, and other things that are going to be a little bit more specific to you and your family.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously we're not going to read through every single question from the workbook. So you have to actually go and download the workbook to get all the questions. But we are going to go through a couple of them right now to help you guys just kind of get an idea and get the process started. So one that I really enjoyed, a question to think through, and really is an easy one to get you started, an easy one to get you going, is what does our family love doing together?
Yes, it's a great opportunity to kind of just take stock, where is everyone happy?
Yeah.
Whether that's for our family, like camping is one of those places, or just being outside, going adventuring, exploring. Sometimes that just means a drive that is to a place we haven't been to in ever or in a long time. But those kind of things, like what do we enjoy doing together? What brings us joy as a family, and where we get to interact well.
Yeah, exactly. So like I said, some families may love reading together, some may love cooking together, some may love hiking and adventuring like we do, some may love going to the beach. So that's a good place to start. Just what does our family love doing together? What's another good question?
I think another great question as a guiding principle, especially in light of scripture, is like, what are your favorite verses? And what are they speaking as husband, wife, children? What are those? What do those verses do? What do they evoke in you? And what are they saying about what you value?
Yeah.
Because that will have an impact, or should have an impact, on what your mission statement is.
Yeah, absolutely. So we wrote down a bunch of our favorite Bible verses. We have, each individually kind of a life verse. A lot of times they'll be referred to as that. And then we have a verse that we picked in our pre-marriage counseling that is like our, verse for our marriage. And so that was really good. And even now, our kids are starting to really cling to scripture in a different way than when they were little. At least our older two. So, our 6-year-old Killian just got up on stage last week and shared a Bible verse and why he liked it. And it was just totally awesome. But he gets very excited about, that stuff. So that's good to not only ask yourselves as parents, but ask your kids, do they have a Bible verse that they really love, and why do they love it?
Okay, so another great idea is trying to ask yourself kind of the question, what is it that we want our family to look like? What are the things that we want to live into, kind of to progress towards? And sometimes that looks, that starts with just asking, what do we do poorly that we want to do better at?
Yeah.
Or where are we constantly getting bound up that we see with our kids? Are they grumbling and complaining? Are they having a hard time getting along together? And then saying, well, this is actually a place where we don't like this. We don't want to be here, and we want to be somewhere else. And we recognize that this is an area of relative weakness for us, and we want to get better at it.
Yeah. So I think one of the good, actual questions to go along with that is, what qualities do we want to exemplify as a family, as both parents and kids? What are the qualities that we want to exemplify? And I think to go along with that, another good question is kind of, what characteristics do you see in others, whether it's another family, other individuals, that you want to emulate, copy, be? Just kind of getting ideas from the outside, whether that be, other families and are wow, I really respect or appreciate that they do this, or they, act this way. Or it could be who are your heroes, and what are their, characteristics that you want to exemplify?
Yes. Okay, so another great question is, what kind of relationships do you want to cultivate inside of your family? Both internally, inside of your family members, but also the kind of relationships you want to have yourself and you want your kids to have with people outside of the family. And what are the qualities of that? And so, because there's going to be things that you need, right, in order to accomplish that. So for us, we have a goal, a part of our mission statement is to engage with other people, as our community as a whole, to be a good neighbor to people, but also to engage with our church family regularly.
Yeah.
And so what does that look like? And what does that mean for our daily schedule, our weekly schedule even, to make time and space for that? And that may include cutting other things out of our schedule so that we can make sure that we are showing that we value our church family in particular by making time for them, both on Sunday mornings, but also in other places during the week.
Yeah. So those are just some of the questions that we have outlined for you guys to ask yourselves, and that we asked ourselves as we were kind of going through this process. The next thing, and this was so helpful to me particularly, but I think to this process, that you're not just having to pull things out of thin air. and come up with words on your own, is the values list. So we've created a list for you all to look through, but we had to kind of do all the Google searches and Pinteresting. And so we found a conglomeration of lists and kind of Frankenstein them together for when we were doing this. We had not written out our own guide, obviously.
Yeah, I think there was 3 or 4 separate lists that were kind of bouncing between.
Yeah, so there's all these lists, and please excuse the sound of paper shuffling because I have all our notes in front of us and we have our lists here. So the first thing is the values list. The values list just gives you a jumping off point. So for us, what we did is we took this list and we had it, we took the lists and we had them in front of us, and we just had a pen and circled the ones that just stood out to us at first. So kind of circling a bunch and then looking through each of the ones that we circled and either, crossing out the ones like, actually, that's not that important, or, oh, these two are basically similar enough that we can choose this one instead of that one. Even writing down some other ones that didn't show up on the lists that we had. And you may come up with some that we don't have on our list, because I'm sure there's just an infinite number of ways that you can define and list out values. So that was good. Just circling the ones, picking the values that stood out to us, and then kind of listing them out and honing them down.
Yeah. Well, I think it also facilitated a really good conversation between us as we were able to discuss particular values and how we saw them and what was, what we liked about them or what we didn't. And then be like, oh, well, that one's really good. I agree. Or I'm not so sure. Let's move on to a different, or let's choose a word that's similar to the one that's there, like a synonym or a near synonym that fits us better or feels more comfortable or doesn't have the same connotations. And it also, sometimes we would start with a word and then end up in a somewhat, through conversation, a completely different place. And so that's where a lot of our added words came from, is we're like, well, we like that, but doesn't quite fit what we're talking about, because that one's very like this and we're not like that. But this one does fit us better. And so we're able to go about it that way. So the conversation alone is worth it. And then maybe once you do it together as a couple, being able to go to your kids and do the same thing as well. And
yeah.
like, hey, these are the words.
Even, bringing like your list of words and say, what do you guys think about these words? So I'm going to
Especially with older kids.
Yes. So our list, our original list of core values that we put out, we have community, and then we kind of combined. So sometimes we would do this/this/this because they're all in the same vein. So we had adventure, exploration, and curiosity. Then we had stewardship and generosity, courage and grit, truthfulness, creativity or creative thinking, loving God and His Word, and thankfulness.
Yes.
So,
we kind of boiled it down out of like a list of probably 20.
Yeah. So we started with like 20 different words, and then again went through them together, talked about them, went, well, that's similar to this, or actually that's not a core value. And so how can we combine that with this value? So it was a really good process. Don't rush it.
Yeah.
And to be honest, we started this, we kind of went through one time, and then we came back.
Yeah, we kind of ruminated on it for a few weeks even, kind of.
Yeah, and then we came back together and went through it again. And okay, are these still sticking? Are these matching what we want? And so that's the value side. And then the next list is something that I have never seen before. So this is definitely different, because I've done mission statement and vision statement exercises for business, for my own personal self, but I have never seen anyone have you go through an action word list. So this was the first time that I'd ever gone through and picked action words. And I think this is really cool, because you're not only looking at what your core values are, but you're also finding those action words of how am I going to live this out?
Yeah.
So it's not just we value blah, 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 blah. It's
Mm-hmm.
we do this because we value this. And so we'll read you some of our rough draft.
I think that one of the greatest tools I've learned in recent years has been the idea that like your actions betray your beliefs. Meaning that if you say something but do something different, you really do believe whatever it is you did more than you believe what you said. And so this helps mitigate that because then you can say, no, this is what it looks like practically to live out this value. And it gives you some good ways in which to engage, and also sets you up for a successful writing because you have the verb.
Exactly. So you've got the values and the action words. And so then you just have to put it all together. You write down the statements, and you can go on Pinterest and look up family mission statement, and there will be a ton of examples. And so we have a few of those examples included in the workbook, but we are going to read you some of our statements. And again, we're still working on this. We're still finalizing this and tweaking it to make it sound good, but also be real.
And I think it's a living document, so we'll probably come back to it periodically and tweak it as our kids get older and our life changes, and maybe some of the things on here that are really important right now become less important later on because of life changes.
It's totally true. So that's one thing that is important to know, is that this isn't set in stone the first time you write it. You can adjust it and tweak it. And if you write it out in such a way that you're just absolutely in love with it, I've seen so many different families that will have it printed out in a really nice way, designed, or you can order custom signs from people like on Etsy or locally where they'll paint it on a piece of wood. I mean, you can do so many creative things to display this in your home so that it's not just something you did one time and wrote down in a notebook, but it's actually something that's in your face, you're seeing every single day, reminding you of what your values and mission is. So, shall we go down this list and read through what we've written so far? All right, so we love God and His Word.
Yes, we always speak the truth in love.
We choose to have a thankful heart.
We are strong and courageous.
We explore and steward the world God created.
We love our community and gather regularly.
And we see challenges as opportunities to think creatively. So that's ours.
Currently.
So far. It will get prettified. Right now it's just very messy on a piece of paper.
Yeah, it's got lines through it and brackets and reordering and
arrows and pointing and pencil and pen. And
life verses at the top. I mean, it's all good.
Yeah. So it's okay to just get messy, dive in. As the wonderful Laura Casey, who does Power Sheets, says, get messy, make mistakes.
It's kind of like Miss Frizzle.
Miss Frizzle, yeah.
Because really, I mean, life is messy anyways. So, and you can't really get through. I mean, if you've ever been on a construction site or seen one, it is an absolute mess until everything's finished, because building and structuring, making structure, all that stuff requires mess until you can kind of get everything into its proper place.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've ever seen the kitchen after our daughter bakes, the food may be good, but the mess, she has a mantra that if it wasn't messy, it's not going to be good. I don't agree with her in this particular case.
I don't know about that one, but yeah, it's definitely a mess. So it's good. Make a mess, progress over perfection, all the things. So like we said, we have the workbook for you. Go check it out. And we will be building on this over the next few episodes. Next episode, we want to talk specifically about learning styles. And I know you're thinking, what does that have to do with mission and vision? But before we talk about your homeschool vision, we think it is important to talk about learning styles and do some investigating in that for your own families, because knowing how your kids learn best will actually guide your homeschool vision statement.
Yeah, because your vision statement or your vision of what your homeschooling will look like may be completely destroyed by the fact that it is not commiserate with your kids' learning styles.
Yeah, because if you think, oh, we're going to read a ton of books together and do all this hands-on learning, and then you come to find out that your kid is really visual and needs images in front of their face, and you just reading aloud to them while they stare off, and like it doesn't work for them. So,
or you got a kid who's like sitting in, your vision is a kid sitting in a corner reading books, and you got an actor as a kid.
Yeah.
Like, then they need people and interaction. It's not going to work.
Exactly.
And so you have to have, your family mission to draw from. What are your core values? What are you trying to get at? And then what kind of people are actually engaged in this? Yeah. And then you can have a vision that actually you can work towards functionally. Like it's an attainable goal or near attainable goal, rather than something that just you end up losing heart and losing hope because, you have this beautiful vision of what your homeschool life is going to look like, and then it doesn't work out.
Exactly. So when you download this workbook, it will include other pages beyond the family mission statement. It will include stuff for helping guide your homeschool vision. So be patient, and we will have those episodes out over the next little bit, and then we will move on. So hopefully that'll be helpful for you guys. So yeah, that's it.
Yep. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you all for listening to this episode. We really appreciate you guys and everyone who has been faithfully listening in. We also really appreciate those of you who have left a review on Apple Podcasts or who have shared out the podcast to friends and family. And we just want to encourage you to please keep doing that, especially if you found this episode or any episode to be valuable. Please share it with your family and friends so that we can get the message out to more people. All right, have a great week.